Gregory McLoughlin. How you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm
Thanks for having me.
good. You're very welcome. So you're in Jersey. You're kind of on the border of Hoboken. I think you should mention Jersey City. You play all over the area. You have some regular gigs you do there. You've become very well known for a regular weekly streaming gig that you started, I think, back in the COVID days. Um, you have a new album coming out, which is under your name. That comes out December 12th. So tell me your story. How did you get started in music, and then we're going to get to the album as well.
As far as getting started in music, I was just a live music fan my entire life. And then when I was in my mid 20s, I started playing the bass around the age of 24, 25. And I joined some bands and got kicked out of some bands. And I found a regular gig with a band called Buzz Universe from 2003 to 2012, where I really blossomed as a bass player. It was an up and coming eclectic jam band, I would say. And we had a really good run, got pretty popular, but then we broke up and I started working on songwriting a lot. And I actually took a songwriting class around that time and kind of found myself as a songwriter. And that's really been my main pursuit ever since then.
Yeah, and your songwriting is very story driven. It feels like, especially the new album, which I was just checking out. How did you develop that style? Is that something you kind of gravitated towards, or was there certain heroes of yours that you really liked that you kind of influenced you as a young musician?
I, you know, I think the storytelling part, when I was first getting really into songwriting, I was getting inspired a lot by books and movies.
Mhm.
So I remember when I was very young going to see the movie Vanilla Sky and then writing a song after that because I thought it had such an intriguing story. Oh, this could be a song. And then some of my early songs were inspired by books, like Boss Tweed was inspired by the Brooklyn Bridge book by David McCullough. And I learned about the character of Boss Tweed and I got a little melody in my head about how Boss Tweed lost everything after his corruption was exposed, and that became kind of an iconic song of mine. And so I would say that's how it started out. It was more about telling stories based on things that I was reading. But then eventually it turned into me making up stories or taking little tidbits of my own life and putting them into stories and making little collages of things. And I would say that's more my approach right now.
So have you is this is your first full length album, but have you been releasing I know you have other songs streaming on Spotify, which I was checking out. Um or yeah, so tell me about that. Have you been slowly releasing stuff and then building into doing a full album? Has that kind of been your path?
Well, for 10 years, I was putting out about three songs a year, just as singles on Spotify, making videos for them. And I had no intention of changing that. I thought that that was the best approach. I said to myself, if you're doing a full album, it's going to cost you a fortune. You're not going to get as much publicity as you're getting from each of these singles as you go along. But at some point, I just decided I was actually encouraged a little bit by a few people that it was time for me to actually make an album and just to make like one, defining artistic statement. And now that I went through that process, and because I'm such a fan of albums from growing up,
Right.
I'm not adverse to ever doing singles again. I mean, I can't really say that because I did it for so long, but it was a great process and I'm really, really proud of it. And I like the way it came together. So my guess is I'm going to go straight to another album sometime within the next couple of years.
Yeah,
So
and it's nice. I mean, I like we're kind of probably the same generation. I grew up like listening to Elton John albums and full works of art, not just the singles. But of course, that's that kind of the place that we are at today, the single driven kind of thing, and which totally makes sense. Tell me about doing gigs, playing bass, and I know you've done a lot of busking stuff. Are those bass with? I said I read like with a tambourine attached to your shoe, and how did that come about? That whole idea?
Well, I mean, it's really hard to be a bass player who does not play guitar and is a
Exactly.
songwriter
Yeah.
and
Right.
perform.
Right.
So when I decided to kind of leap off that cliff, which was around 2015, I was without a band. I had been in a band for years and I was without a band and I realized I need to get my music out there somehow. And what do I have? I mean, I have a bass, so I'm going to try to make it happen. And that's really what it's been. It's about figuring out how to make it happen. I would say I started at very, very first doing acoustic bass in an open mic with a drum machine with an iPhone app. That is about 10 years ago.
Cool.
And that had its limitations. I mean, it would be kind of cool for one or two things, and it would pump people up because I would make it groove nicely. But then you realize you can't have changes. So then
Right,
I
right.
had
Yeah.
to figure out something else. So at that point, I went with the foot tambourine, and the foot tambourine was cool too. And that works really well for busking in person if I'm going in Washington Square Park, or if I'm going at a Fish concert or a Goose concert, car to car. That
Right.
works very well. But for my live stream, I started off on the live stream actually just smacking my foot on the floor and making a foot slapping sound,
Oh, okay. Cool.
which was cool. It was cool. But until a friend of mine named John Allen, shout out John Allen, said you really need a kick drum. So I
Oh,
went
okay.
out and I bought a kick drum pedal, and that's really been, the clutch that really learns to hold the bass and the rhythm together in a way that I can actually get away pretty solidly singing original songs with just a bass as my instrument.
Yeah, and it gets people moving and grooving and dancing, and that's really a fun.
Sometimes,
Yeah,
sometimes
right. But
depends
it's
on the
cool
night.
that it's nice to have because we're all very familiar with the guitar busker, so it's sort of nice to have a different hook to it, a different vibe. Speaking as a bass player myself, I'm always appreciative of bass players that reinvent the vibe. It's very
Yeah,
cool. So tell me, so during COVID, you started doing live streams on a regular
yeah.
basis. Tell me that
Mhm.
story.
Well, I'm going to give a shout out to my friend Rob out in Western New Jersey because he's the one who told me about Busking Down the House. Now, Busking Down the House was a Facebook group during the very beginning of COVID where a girl named Catherine from Eastern New Jersey basically started a Facebook group and started contacting all the musicians and saying, hey, none of us are doing anything. You want to get on here and do a live stream for everybody? And when that started, I pitched her and I said, I guess I'm going to give it a shot. Can I do this? Because my friend Rob encouraged me. And I did, I asked her for Monday night at 8 o'clock. And she said, sure. And I did not know what I was getting into when I did it. I was nervous. And I played 5 or 6 songs. And I didn't know if anybody was watching. And then I went back to my computer after it was done, and I saw there was like 200 comments. I was like, "What? This is crazy! How could this be?" And people were psyched. They were like, "Oh my god, yeah, Greg from Buzz Universe, this is so cool!" And so I said, "Hey, that went pretty great. Can I have next Monday?" And she said, "Sure." And then I locked in Mondays, and I ended up doing it on that page for maybe about 40 weeks in a row.
Wow.
And over the course of the first 10 weeks, I got a bunch of really devoted fans, several of them who still watch every week. And one of them started saying in the chat, TGIM, because Greg's playing TGIM, and thanks
Right.
God it's Monday. Sometimes they say, thank Greg it's Monday. I'm not sure what it really stands for.
Awesome.
But TGIM just became a thing. Everybody started saying TGIM as they greeted themselves when they entered the live stream chat comments, TGIM, TGIM. And that to this day is what people say when they log in at the beginning of the live stream, TGIM everybody. And I post TGIM everywhere. And they even sent me a T-shirt during COVID. They made a T-shirt that said TGIM, and I have that posted. If I wish I had it here to show you guys. I do have it in the other room, but I'm not going to interrupt the podcast to go get it.
Mm.
But it really became a fun thing. And after COVID ended, the audience definitely trickled down a bit just because naturally in life, people had more responsibilities during the week. And it dripped down. And it even gotten to the point where there were a few weeks where only 3 or 4 people were watching. And I could have gotten discouraged, but I knew that I was loving what I'm doing. And I loved the challenge of being forced to keep on doing the live stream every week. So I just kept at it and kept at it. And it's pretty much reached the same numbers as COVID now, which is exciting. And it took a long time to climb back up that hill, but it's really working well now, especially because it's on YouTube also. That makes a big difference. It's not just in a Facebook group, it goes on YouTube. People watch on their television sets. So sometimes they send pictures of their TVs afterwards, which is
It's fun.
awesome. So
Yeah.
awesome. I love it.
Well, it's awesome. I mean, it's the first thing I always tell people like think globally, and that really is a global audience. I mean, there's no
It is.
limitations. So and also it's another form of stream of income possibly for musicians, to kind of
Maybe
reinvent.
someday.
Yeah, yeah. But it's you're out there doing it and you're being seen, and that's and you never know who's going to see it. So
You
that
do not know.
yeah, that's a big win. And you have a regular house gig. Is it in Hoboken or where's your regular gig at there?
in Hoboken. It's at a bookstore. And every Wednesday from 5 to 6, I just perform for whoever happens to be walking by. We just call it an after work concert. And I bring a different guest every week. I just showcase, a different little friend from the neighborhood, or sometimes, Nashville level artists. Sometimes, uh, like I had a Bangladeshi musician a few weeks ago who
Awesome.
came in, and I learned how to play some of his music. And I'm actually going to have a hip hop artist in mid-December. And I don't know what we're going to do yet, but his name is Butter Roll, and he blows my mind every time I see him. So we're going to collaborate on some level. So it's really fun. It's really fun. And again, that's something else where you don't know how many people are going to be there, but it's really special. And it's nice that they offer me the opportunity to do it. And it's right on the main drag. So people are coming off the train, passing by. It's kind of helping me become a presence around town.
Yeah, that's awesome. And and it's something you look forward to doing. And it's nice to have a place where people know they can find you every week and come see you. And that's a great way to build a following. You mentioned collaboration. So, I mean, obviously you're kind of known as a solo guy, but you do collaborate and you have musicians, you have a
Yep.
band. Tell me about that for you. Is that exciting? Is that something you've kind of tried to cultivate?
I love it. I love collaborating. In January, I'm actually going to go down to Asheville for a different podcast interview, and I'm going to do a TGIM from there. Surprise, surprise. And I have a friend who used to play keyboards in a New Jersey band called Inclement Weather Band. He moved down to Asheville many, many years ago. He lives down there now, and I just messaged him on Facebook and I said, "Hey, can I make a duo show with you? Let's do it." And he was like, "Yes, absolutely." And that's kind of the spirit I like to do. I don't like to rehearse. I'm not a big fan of rehearsing. I'm just, I'll send you my stuff. You send me my stuff. You're a great musician. I know what I'm doing. And we just wing it and have fun. And I think collaboration's the ultimate. I mean, when I was going to a million live concerts a year, nothing would get me more excited than when there would be a special guest on stage.
Right.
I mean, I guess the most special one would be when I saw BB King on stage with Fish. It
Yeah,
was a
that's it.
special
Right.
one.
Yeah, and great musicians too. Fish. So
Yeah.
what an interesting combination that is, right?
Yeah, or when I saw Chuck Berry once in St. Louis in his own club, and David Bowie's guitar player, one of his guitar players, gosh, what was his name? Nick, it's escaping me. A
Yeah.
longtime guitar player for David Bowie showed up and jammed with Chuck Berry. That's the ultimate. So for me to be able to do that on any level, always, it's a priority for me.
Yeah, what were some of your favorite bands like early on? Where I kind of saw that you were sort of into jam bands, but I know you listened to everything. Who were some of the artists that you really got you going and really inspired you?
I mean, the biggest inspiration for me as a youngster was two things. I would say Bruce Springsteen, because it
Okay,
was the Born in the USA era, and it was
right.
just like, wow. But La Bamba, the movie La Bamba.
I love that movie.
I mean, it's so I went to see La Bamba. I was in probably, let's see, if you have any idea when it came out, maybe like 86. I was 11 years old.
Right.
I
Yeah.
was in I was in Cape Cod with my family, and I was there. It was me, my sister, and these three girls that were kind of like friends of the family. But I was kind of in that coming of age time, starting to like girls and all that stuff, self-conscious, and we all went to see La Bamba. And La Bamba, to me, I didn't know what it was. I thought, it was around the same time that Back to the Beach came out. I'm not sure if
Right.
you're
Yeah,
familiar with
you've
that.
heard the song, but you don't know the
I don't
background
even
or
know if I heard the song. In my
right.
head, I was
Oh,
going to
okay.
see a beach movie,
Right,
like
right,
Back to the Beach, like La
right.
Bamba sounded like a beach movie. So I go to the movies.
Funny.
I go to the movies, and it's from the beginning. I was like, wow, what's this? It's a kid with a guitar, and he's learning how to play guitar, and then the whole story unfolded, and I didn't know what was going to happen either. I didn't know about the day the music died. So
Ah,
he was
okay.
instantly my hero, and then the horrible ending. I mean, the super sad, real ending. I was crying in the theater, but I was trying not to, And I
Right.
remember
Yeah.
we got in the car from the movie theater back to the Cape Cod house with the friends of the family and this and the young girl Claire and Julianne. They're like, somebody was crying. I heard somebody crying. I'm like, it wasn't me. It wasn't me.
Yeah. Trying to be the
But
cool guy. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. But that being said, I mean,
Funny.
I bought the VHS of it. I watched it 50 times, and I mean, it was just such a great story, and that would be the biggest. inspiration for me as a child. But as far as music is concerned, I went to a million concerts. I've seen like 200 Fish concerts. I've seen Springsteen 20 times. I've seen David Bowie 6 times. I'm a live music addict,
Awesome.
and not anymore. I go see shows here and there. Since I'm doing my own thing so much, I don't go to as many shows. But I was a live music addict for most of my life.
Yeah, it was La Bamba for me, and also the Buddy Holly story. Just
Oh yeah,
those
yeah.
two films. And like, yeah, because I was a young guitar player. I started playing guitar and writing songs when I was like 12. And those guys, that's just that thing just gets you fired up. And I was sort of a Kiss fan, right? When I was like in junior
Oh yeah,
high.
I saw Kiss twice
Yeah, they were
with no
awesome
makeup.
live. Awesome live.
No makeup. That means I went for the music. No
Uh,
makeup.
okay. I saw him live in Cleveland with the makeup.
Okay,
Yeah. So that was, and I always say, like, even if you weren't a Kiss fan, the show was really freaking awesome.
it
Uh,
was.
so tell me, making this album, so you have I guess you have a band. Obviously, there's a lot of production. Who
Yeah.
helped you produce the album, and who were some of the musicians that played on the album?
Yeah, sure. I have a bass band, and I've had the same producer for 10 years. If you go through my catalog, there's only one single under my name that's not produced by John Roccasano. And Johnny Rock, we call him. He's also my drummer now. He's been my
Oh,
drummer
okay.
for a few years. And
Yeah.
he's an incredible drummer. And yeah, so the bass band is the same. It's David Ribiat, who's a Hoboken, Jersey City veteran, really. He's been around forever. And in my opinion, David Ribiat, every time I play with him, I just feel that it's such an honor that I get to play with him because the first
Mhm.
time I ever saw him on stage, I said to myself, I've got to play music with that guy someday.
Awesome.
And he's been my right-hand man for many years. He's quite a bit older than me, but he just has such a beautiful style. Actually, he's also a painter. I don't know if you can see up there, but
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah. Yeah.
that is a David Ribiat original, Chuck Berry
Awesome. Yeah.
painting up there. And Max Feinstein owns the studio where I record, and he's been my other guitarist, my second guitarist for quite a while also. And it's just a killer band with different, very dynamic guitar stylings. David Ribiat has a very distinctive style, which is completely different from Max Feinstein. So
Mm.
I think it's a great unit, and they are the main band on the entire album. And then I just had a couple other musicians fill in some of the gaps.
Yeah, the production is really good. I actually all the stuff that I was just checking out on your Spotify, the production is world class, really, really well done. And I like that how your voice is featured. It's just it's very like up present, and you really feel the story in the songs, which is awesome because sometimes people get so worried about writing hooks they forget that a story or telling a story is kind of like the ultimate thing. That's what really touches people's soul, I think.
That's
Um,
good to know.
yeah, you've been around for a long time. You've been doing gigs and you've been recording and the whole thing. What's some advice for younger artists or people that want to do that what you're doing or in that same singer songwriter vibe? What's some of the things that you've learned and advice that you could give?
Because of where I am at my age, and the picture, if you show up at Hoboken on a Wednesday and you just see me playing in Hoboken to two or three people, it might look like, oh man, this guy, he's still just doing the same thing and nobody and all that. Um, I I don't know where I'm starting with that, but I think my advice would just be that you got to realize that if you really want to do this, you're in it for life.
Right.
And you've just got to not think about superstardom. You just got to think about making great music and enjoy what you're doing, enjoy the process. That's really my advice because that's all I've ever done. Social media, it's a necessary thing. Obviously, I've got my Instagram, I've got my Facebook, but making short little snippet videos for things like TikTok and Instagram Reels, it doesn't come naturally to me. So I just do it my way. So I would say if something doesn't feel right for you, don't do that. Just do it your way and put your heart and soul into it and see what happens.
Yeah,
That's what
and
I'm
that's
doing.
Yeah, that's it's just basically about being authentic to yourself, and like I mean that's the advice. When people have asked me that question about music, I've always said, it's sort of the thing where if you can't dissuade them from being a musician, that's the only time in a way that they should forge because it's not going to be an easy path, but you also need to feed your soul and be authentic. It's super important, and I think that that's really really great advice. Tell people how they can find you online, social media, website, all that stuff.
I guess the best way is just go to my contacts page on my website. I hand out a magnet all the time to folks whenever I'm like, I carry around business card magnets. So if I'm busking, if I'm doing anything, I offer to play a song and then I give you a magnet for your fridge. And the magnet has
Awesome.
a QR code and it goes directly to my website to a page on there. It's called Contact, where it has the links to Spotify, YouTube. So I would say just follow me on Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram. All three, why not?
Yeah.
Or if it's Apple Music, whatever you use for your streaming, that kind of covers everything. YouTube, you see my live streams and my videos, which I'm very proud of also. Spotify, obviously, that's just important for me to get, numbers to hopefully get on playlists and things like that, that I hope to do
Right.
on
What's
YouTube.
the actual website address? Is it just your name.com or
Yeah, that would be GregoryMcLoughlin.com. And honestly, I don't update it well enough, but
yeah.
that is where it is. The one thing that is updated on the website all the time are the set lists, and that's done by my wonderful, wonderful friend Alicia. So,
Awesome. Yeah. Well, it's good to have a hub and people can find you. It makes it easy. And it's always, the thing too, as independent artists, it's just really important. Like you mentioned, social media, it's important to just be out there so people can find you because, you could be the greatest singer, greatest artist in the world, but if people don't know how to access your music and that kind of thing, it's not helping you that much. So it's awesome that you make the effort to do that and do the podcast interviews, which is we're able to get a little bit more in depth than a lot of other avenues. So that's it's fun for me, and it's great to feature indie artists like yourself.
well, thank you. No, it's psyched to be here. It's a great honor to be on a podcast. This is new to me, so I'm excited.
Yeah, it did great, and you have a lot of great music, and I encourage people to check it out. The new album, Gregory McLoughlin, trying to say the name correctly, out this
With an O. A lot of people spell McLaughlin MCLAU,
exactly, yeah.
but it's OU. So Gregory
Yeah.
McLoughlin.
Awesome. And we'll put your website and all your information as well on the podcast description so they can reference that. And new album comes out December 12th. They can check you out weekly online via YouTube and your other outlets. And thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. It's fun to hear your
Oh
story.
man. Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much.
You're very
Let's see what the
welcome.
future holds
Absolutely. Yeah, that's true for all of us.
for all of us. All of us.
All right, man. Thanks, Greg. I really appreciate your
Be
time.
good. Thank you.
Awesome. Have a great day.
Bye.